The soul detects what the mind cannot see. The secret Zeland never spelled out is the one you've felt your entire life. Your soul sees the future first. Before logic forms a thought, before reasoning builds a story, before your mind decides what is true, something deeper reacts. You feel an unexplainable yes or an unexplainable no, a heaviness that has no cause, a clarity that arrives without evidence, a discomfort that contradicts your plans. What if those sensations are not emotions, but perception? What if they are your soul responding to a future that already exists? The title you clicked is not philosophical entertainment. It is a revelation about how reality actually works. And the question is simple. How many wrong paths have you walked because your mind overruled what your soul already knew? How many relationships, decisions, opportunities, or risks felt wrong from the beginning, even though you couldn't explain why? And how many times did you ignore that signal because it didn't make sense? This video exists to end that conflict. You will understand why the soul can feel the outcome of a lifeline before it materializes. You will see how the mind, blinded by logic, collapses probability too slowly to protect you. You will learn the precise difference between fear, intuition, and soul discomfort. And you will discover the technique Zeland hinted at but never fully unfolded. The moment when the mind lowers its guard and the soul projects the reality slide of what is coming. If you stop here, you will keep confusing anxiety with intuition, excitement with alignment, desire with destiny. You will continue stepping into futures your soul tried to pull you away from. But if you stay, you will learn to feel what your mind cannot see. And once you understand that your soul is already navigating the space of variance, your entire relationship with manifestation, timing, and choice will transform. This is not mysticism. This is the mechanics of consciousness. The soul perceives direction, the mind perceives detail, and when you finally let them work together, reality stops resisting you. 1. The blindness of the mind. The mind is brilliant at analyzing the past, but almost useless at perceiving what is about to unfold. It was built for survival, not foresight. Its job is to calculate risk based on what has happened before, which is why it clings to logic, even when logic is the slowest instrument available to consciousness. When the mind decides, it does so after filtering possibilities through memory, fear, and pattern recognition. This delay makes the mind blind to what the soul already sensed. The mind collapses probability only when the outcome is near, while the soul feels the trajectory long before matter reorganizes itself. Internal dialogue amplifies this blindness. The moment thoughts begin justifying, comparing, or rationalizing, the subtle signal is lost. The mind cannot detect the future because it depends on evidence, and evidence arrives too late. The soul's access to the field. While the mind requires proof, the soul operates in a dimension where proof is unnecessary. The soul perceives through resonance, not reasoning. It feels the direction a line of life is taking before the mind ever detects movement. In transurfing, this is the soul's connection to the space of variance, a field where every future already exists in potential. The soul does not predict, it perceives. Its perception is immediate because it is not limited by time. Time affects the mind, not the soul. That is why the soul reacts instantly to a decision the mind hasn't even evaluated. Science mirrors this mystery. Heart-brain experiments show the heart responds to future stimuli seconds before the brain registers anything. Non-local perception studies reveal physiological responses to events that have not yet occurred. Scripture echoes the same truth. Before they call, I will answer. The soul sees the outcome, the mind sees the steps. The signal the soul feels first.
The soul speaks in a language the mind rarely understands, sensation without story. When a future line of life carries harmony, your soul responds with a quiet openness, not excitement, not adrenaline, simply a sense of naturalness, as if nothing is being forced. But when the line ahead contains conflict, misalignment, or eventual regret, the soul tightens. The discomfort is subtle, almost silent, but unmistakable when you learn to notice it. It shows up as a faint heaviness, a momentary contraction, a whisper of unease without any logical cause. The mind will try to explain it away, offering justifications, timelines, or optimism. But the soul does not negotiate. Its signal is immediate because it is reacting to an outcome already visible in the field. Fear is loud, emotional, and fast. Soul discomfort is quiet, neutral, and persistent. And that persistence is your only reliable compass.
4. The body as translator. Somatic echoes of the future. The body is the bridge between what the soul perceives and what the mind can understand. Long before a thought appears, the nervous system reacts. A slight shift in breath, a tightening in the stomach, a soft expansion in the chest. These are not random sensations. They are the body translating the soul's reading of future outcomes. Your physiology is always ahead of your psychology. Studies in neurocardiology show that the heart responds milliseconds before the brain forms a conscious interpretation, acting as an antenna tuned to the informational field. Polyvagal theory adds another layer. Your vagus nerve detects safety or threat before cognition plays any role. This means your body often knows the truth before you can articulate it. When a path is aligned, the body softens. When the soul senses a negative trajectory, tension appears without explanation. These micro-responses are the soul's early warnings disguised as physical cues. 5. The reason lies. The soul doesn't. The mind was built to explain, not to foresee. When the soul reacts to a future that hasn't yet unfolded, the mind immediately tries to rewrite the feeling into logic it can understand. It dismisses subtle warnings with arguments that sound rational, but are disconnected from truth. This is why people stay in relationships that drain them, accept jobs that suffocate them, or walk toward choices that feel heavy. The mind creates narratives to justify what the soul already rejected. It defends comfort, predictability, and familiarity, even when these lead to the wrong lifeline. Cognitive science calls this rational narrative fabrication. The mind invents reasons to maintain control. Yet every time you override discomfort, you mute the only part of you capable of reading the energetic consequences ahead. The soul cannot lie because it does not reason, it perceives. It reacts to what is coming, not to what you wish were true. When you listen, alignment begins. When you refuse, the friction grows until reality mirrors the cost. 6. When the soul says no, the energetic pattern behind it. A true no from the soul never arrives as fear, panic, or dramatic emotion. It comes as a subtle heaviness, a quiet tightening, a vague sense that something is off. This unease has no logical reason because it is not reacting to the present. It is responding to the energetic outcome of the path ahead. The soul sees the end of the trajectory before the mind even understands the first step. This discomfort is the signal that a future line of life carries imbalance, emotional depletion, loss of energy, misalignment, or consequences you cannot yet imagine. Zeland calls this the discord signature, the vibrational mismatch between who you are and the reality you're about to step into. The mind argues, insisting that everything makes sense, but the soul marks the path as energetically incompatible.
When you ignore this signal, external intention amplifies the misalignment, and events begin to unfold with resistance, delays, confusion, friction, and the sensation of being pushed toward the wrong direction. The soul's no is not a punishment. It is protection from a timeline that does not belong to you. 7. When the soul says yes. A different kind of peace. A true yes from the soul almost never feels like excitement. Excitement belongs to the ego, the part of you that craves novelty, status, validation, or quick reward. The soul's yes is quieter, deeper, almost understated. It appears as a clean internal space where nothing tightens, nothing resists, nothing contracts. It is the feeling of naturalness, like slipping into a warm room after being out in the cold. This sense of rightness isn't euphoria, it's clarity. You feel a gentle openness in the chest, a stable neutrality, a subtle confidence that needs no justification. Zeland describes this as the harmony of resonance, the energetic match between your true line of life and the path in front of you. The soul sees the outcome, recognizes familiarity with that future, and signals approval without drama. You aren't pulled by desire, you are guided by coherence. The mind might still hesitate, searching for guarantees, but the absence of inner tension reveals the truth. When you follow this quiet yes, events begin to align effortlessly. Timing becomes precise, and opportunities unfold without force. The path doesn't feel easy because it's comfortable. It feels easy because it's yours. 8. How the soul views future lines of life. Metaphysics. The soul does not move through time the way the mind does. It perceives reality as a field of parallel outcomes, the space of variance, where every possibility already exists in potential form. To the mind, the future is unknown, a sequence that unfolds step by step. To the soul, the future is directional, not sequential.
It senses the quality of a lifeline before events appear, the same way you can feel the atmosphere of a place before understanding why. The soul doesn't analyze steps, risks, or logic. It reads resonance. It detects whether the line you're about to choose will expand you or drain you, elevate you or trap you. This is why its warnings come as subtle contraction and its approval as quiet ease. The soul sees outcomes while the mind obsesses over strategies. When a path aligns, the soul recognizes its frequency instantly because it already exists on that timeline. And when a path misaligns, the soul senses the friction long before the mind can detect concrete evidence. Following this perception is not intuition in the emotional sense, it is energetic navigation. It's the internal GPS that never rushes, never argues, and never lies. 9. The science behind future perception. Science has begun to uncover what mystics understood for centuries. The body senses future outcomes before the mind becomes aware. Experiments in neurocardiology show that the heart responds to emotional stimuli several seconds before they appear, suggesting a form of physiological anticipation. This precognitive window reveals that the nervous system interacts with information outside linear time. In research on the default mode network, moments of intuitive clarity coincide with reduced mental chatter, allowing subtle signals to reach awareness. The brain stops predicting from memory and becomes receptive to signals from the field. Studies in predictive processing demonstrate that perception is not passive. The brain constantly updates its internal model of reality based on incoming information, including cues that have not yet manifested physically. This is not superstition. It is coherence between consciousness and probability. When the mind quiets and the heart synchronizes, a 6-second window opens where the body reacts to what the soul already sees.
This is why the first feeling you experience, before thought intervenes, carries truth. The soul perceives trajectory, the mind interprets aftermath. 10. The trap of false intuition. Most people mistake emotional noise for inner knowing. This is the greatest barrier to perceiving the soul's real signals. Fear often disguises itself as intuition, producing urgency, contraction, and a sense of impending threat. These sensations come from the nervous system replaying past wounds, not from the soul reading future outcomes. Likewise, excitement can masquerade as alignment, creating a rush of desire that feels like a yes but is driven by craving, fantasy, or ego validation. True intuition never shouts, rushes, or demands. It doesn't create pressure or adrenaline. It doesn't promise salvation or threaten punishment. The genuine signal of the soul is subtle, stable, and quiet, marked by the absence of resistance rather than the presence of euphoria. Trauma responses are loud because they originate in survival circuitry. Ego impulses are dramatic because they seek identity. The soul is neither. It communicates through neutrality rather than intensity. When you confuse fear for warning or excitement for guidance, you collapse toward lifelines shaped by past conditioning instead of future resonance. Discernment begins when you pause long enough to ask, is this tension or truth? The answer reveals whether you're hearing the past or the path. 11. How ignoring the soul pulls you into wrong lines of reality. When the soul says no and the mind overrides it, you create an energetic split that instantly destabilizes your path. This split generates excess potential, and the field must rebalance it. That rebalancing often comes in the form of friction, obstacles, delays, or what people call bad luck. But nothing is random. Every negative spiral begins with a moment when the soul whispered discomfort and the mind insisted on logic, convenience, or ego. The discomfort you ignore becomes the doorway to a lower lifeline because external intention amplifies the direction of your inner state. If the soul resists and the mind forces movement, the field interprets this inner conflict as misalignment and pushes you toward lines of life that match confusion, fear, or scarcity. This is why wrong relationships deteriorate quickly after subtle early warnings. It's why jobs that made sense on paper become heavy and draining. It's why opportunities that looked promising collapse the moment you commit. The soul had already seen the outcome, and its signal was the only protection you needed. When you ignore that signal, you enter timelines where lessons come through resistance instead of clarity. The longer you stay, the more reality confirms the discomfort you tried to rationalize away. The universe isn't punishing you, it's echoing the choice of the mind over the awareness of the soul.
12. The soul-mind conflict. Why most people live in friction. The deepest suffering doesn't come from circumstances. It comes from the silent war between what the soul knows and what the mind insists on. The soul perceives outcomes directly from the field, without sequencing or logic. The mind, however, is bound to linear reasoning, past experiences, and identity narratives. When the mind chooses a path the soul has already rejected, the body becomes the battleground where this disagreement plays out. You feel it as anxiety without cause, heaviness you can't explain, procrastination that doesn't make sense, irritability that appears out of nowhere. These are not flaws or emotional weaknesses. They are signs of misalignment. They are the soul pulling back while the mind pushes forward. This internal conflict creates excess potential that pendulums immediately exploit. They amplify your doubts, intensify your fears, and lure you into loops of overthinking. Manifestation fails not because you lack belief, but because the soul and mind are not saying the same thing. The mind declares desire. The soul refuses the direction. The result is stagnation, confusion, and collapse of external intention. Harmony only emerges when the mind stops arguing, stops insisting, and begins listening. When the two align on a single decision, power flows effortlessly. Until then, every step forward feels like walking against the current. 13. How to hear the soul. The method Zeland only hints at. To hear the soul, you don't need mystical training or esoteric rituals. You need silence sharp enough to notice what has always been there. The soul never speaks in language. It speaks in resonance. Its signals appear in the briefest gaps, the micro-pauses between thoughts, the stillness after an exhale, the moment right before you respond to something. These are the windows where the mind relaxes just enough for the soul's perception to surface. The technique begins by interrupting your internal dialogue for a few seconds at a time. Not through force, but through attention. After each thought, wait a moment. Let the silence expand by half a breath. In that gap, observe the body. Does your chest soften or tighten? Does the breath deepen or hold? Does the stomach open or close? The soul communicates through neutrality or contraction, clarity or fog, expansion or subtle dread. This is the discernment formula. The soul whispers quietly but consistently. The ego shouts loudly but inconsistently. To access the soul's knowing, you must detach from emotional waves and reach emotion zero. In zero, the mind stops projecting hopes and fears, and what remains is the raw signal. You are not analyzing or interpreting, you are sensing. Over time, the body becomes the translator, and the soul's yes or no becomes unmistakable. Listening is not mystical. It is returning to the natural intelligence that never stopped guiding you. 14. The advanced technique, the window of reason. There is a moment Zeland barely describes, yet it's the most powerful intuitive doorway in the entire Transurfing system. It happens when the rational mind briefly loses its grip, when the internal narrator falls silent for a fraction of a second. These micro-gaps occur in specific transitions. The instant you wake before memory reactivates, the moment right before you fall asleep, the pause after a deep exhale, the second after a sudden realization, or even in the quiet shock that follows unexpected news. In these windows, the mind's guard drops, and the soul projects a slide of the future directly into awareness. Not a dream, not imagination, but a sensory snapshot from a lifeline already forming. Most people miss it because they rush to fill the silence with thought. The advanced technique is to catch the window without interfering. When the gap appears, do nothing. Let the image, feeling, or subtle emotional temperature surface on its own. It might show up as a loose visual, a physical sensation, or a sudden clarity that doesn't come from reasoning. This is the window slide, the true method hidden behind the simplified teachings. You are not visualizing, you are receiving. You are not constructing, you are perceiving. In that brief state, the soul communicates without distortion, offering a preview of the path you are about to step into. Your task is simple. Notice the window, remain still, and allow the future to reveal itself. 15. Training the soul-mind agreement. Alignment is not achieved through force. It is trained through repetition of harmony. The mind must learn to stop dominating and begin cooperating. This training begins with reducing importance. Excess importance is the loudest barrier between the soul and reason. Whenever something feels urgent, heavy, or defining,
The mind inflates its role and blocks the soul's subtle cues. Neutralize importance by reminding yourself that no path is the only path, and no outcome determines your worth.
This loosens the mind's grip and allows the soul's guidance to return. The next stage is emotional neutrality, not numbness, but balance. In emotion 0, your feelings stop shaking your perception. You perceive from stillness, not survival. From there, the mind becomes an observer instead of an intruder. Each time you quiet your thoughts for just a few seconds, you strengthen the channel between soul and reason. Over time, the mind begins to trust the accuracy of the soul's signals. It stops arguing and starts aligning. The final layer is identity recalibration. The mind must adopt a new self-image, one that naturally includes intuition instead of resisting it. When both soul and reason choose the same direction, external intention activates instantly. Reality bends quietly and precisely, not through force, but through unanimity. True power emerges only when the inner voices stop contradicting each other and move as one. Before we close, this is the moment where understanding becomes embodiment. Writing a phrase might seem simple, but language is the bridge between intention and materialization. When you speak or write a truth, you're not describing reality, you're instructing it. The mind organizes around what is articulated. The nervous system encodes it. The field receives it as a command. This is why ancient traditions used spoken declarations, and why modern psychology confirms that expression reshapes identity. So I invite you to seal this teaching into your consciousness through a deliberate act. Go to the comments and write, "My soul sees the path before my mind." Do it slowly, not as affirmation, but as recognition. Let the words settle into your awareness. Feel how your body responds when you acknowledge that deeper intelligence guiding you long before thought arrives. This simple ritual aligns the mind with the truth it often resists. It opens space for the soul to be heard more clearly. As you write, you are declaring that your future no longer belongs to guesswork or fear, but to the quiet certainty rising from within. This is not for the algorithm. It is for the alignment that only action can anchor. 17. The future was never hidden from you. The secret was never about learning how to predict the future. It was about remembering that a part of you has always been ahead of time. The soul does not think in steps or strategies. It does not negotiate, rationalize, or hesitate. It feels the trajectory long before the mind begins its analysis. Every moment of unexplained peace, every quiet warning, every subtle inner shift has been the soul guiding you toward the lifeline where you belong. The mind was never the enemy. It was simply late to the truth. It relied on logic while the soul relied on resonance. And when the two moved out of sync, your path filled with friction. But each time you listened to the whisper instead of the noise, life unfolded with an accuracy no plan could rival. That was never coincidence. That was alignment. You now understand that destiny is not discovered through force. It is sensed through coherence. The future does not hide behind effort. It reveals itself when you stop arguing with your own knowing. Your only task was never to push, chase, or convince. It was to listen, to trust the part of you that already stands in the doorway of the reality you are moving toward. The soul sees first, the mind follows. When they finally act as one, life stops resisting and begins responding. You step out of accidental futures and into chosen ones. And the path that once seemed uncertain becomes unmistakable. Because the direction was always inside you, only the permission to hear it was missing.